Forget your fancy gear and modern knowledge. What if I dropped you into the Stone Age tomorrow with literally nothing but the clothes on your back and the wilderness around you? Could you truly survive, not by recreating history, but by finding and shaping the tools you need, just like our ancestors did? Strip away everything. No knife, no lighter, no rope, no metal of any kind. You're standing in a forest approximately 10,000 years ago, during the late Paleolithic period, when agriculture hasn't been invented and human survival depends entirely on hunting, gathering, and the ability to create tools from whatever nature provides. Your ancestors thrived here for tens of thousands of years. The question isn't whether it's possible. Clearly it is, or you wouldn't exist. The question is whether you, with your modern brain trained for different challenges, could do what they did. The first reality hits within hours. Thirst. You need water, and you need it clean enough not to kill you. Rivers and streams exist, but without a container, you're drinking straight from the source, hoping parasites and bacteria don't incapacitate you before you can establish basic survival infrastructure. Your ancestors would have known which water sources were safer, which plants indicated clean water nearby, how to read the landscape. You're guessing. Hunger follows more slowly, but more relentlessly. The human body can survive weeks without food, but it can't function effectively. Your energy drops. Your decision-making deteriorates. You need calories, and acquiring them without tools is nearly impossible. Berries and edible plants exist, but identifying them requires knowledge that takes years to develop. One mistake, eating the wrong mushroom, the wrong berry, could mean agonizing death. Your ancestors learned through generational knowledge passed down carefully. You're experimenting with your life as the stakes. This is where tools stop being convenience and become survival. A cutting edge changes everything. It lets you process plant materials, butcher any animal you manage to kill or scavenge, craft other tools, build shelter, defend yourself. Without it, you're effectively defenseless and helpless. Creating that cutting edge from raw materials is the gateway skill that determines whether you live or die. Flint knapping, the process of shaping stone into usable tools, sounds simple in theory. Strike one rock against another at the correct angle with proper force, and flakes of stone break away, eventually creating a sharp edge. In practice, it's brutally difficult. Modern experiments by archaeologists and survival experts reveal that even with instruction, most people require days or weeks of practice before producing a genuinely useful blade. The stone must be the right type. Flint, obsidian, chert, materials with conchoidal fracturing properties. Hit the wrong stone and you just smash rocks together, achieving nothing except possibly injured hands. Assume you find suitable flint. Now you need a hammerstone, a harder stone to strike with. The angle of impact must be precise, typically around 70 to 90 degrees to the edge you're creating. Too shallow and nothing happens. Too steep and the stone shatters uselessly. The force must be controlled, enough to fracture the stone, but not so much that you create unusable fragments. Your hands will bleed. You'll spend hours producing a single crude blade that would satisfy your ancestors' children but embarrass their skilled craftspeople. But, let's just assume you succeed. You now have a cutting edge. So what next? Well, fire becomes the next existential priority. Humans are, by nature, tropical animals, physiologically speaking. We lack fur, and we lose heat really rapidly in cold environments. Night temperatures in temperate regions during the Paleolithic could drop below freezing, even in summer. Without fire, hypothermia becomes a real risk. Creating fire without modern tools, honestly, requires friction methods. The bow drill technique, using a wooden spindle rotated rapidly against a fireboard to generate ember-forming heat, is the most reliable primitive method, but it does require cordage for the bow, proper wood selection for spindle and board, and, well, a technique refined through practice. The hand drill method is simpler in terms of materials, but demands even more skill and physical endurance. You absolutely need dry tinder, inner bark, dried grass, fungus materials that catch from a tiny ember. And in wet conditions, creating fire becomes exponentially harder. Modern survival experts, when attempting authentic Stone Age fire-making, report that even with knowledge and practice, success rates in field conditions are maybe 50 to 60% for experienced practitioners. For a novice, the odds drop dramatically. Your ancestors could create fire reliably because they practiced from childhood. But you, well, you're learning during the most stressful possible circumstances. Shelter matters more than most people realize. Exposure, honestly, it kills faster than starvation. Even in moderate climates, just sleeping directly on cold ground drains body heat. Precipitation, soaks clothing and really accelerates heat loss. Wind cuts through any improvised shelter that lacks proper construction. Building effective shelter with only found materials, like branches, leaves, bark, and grass, well, that requires understanding structural principles, material properties, and also having the tools to process those materials into usable forms. A debris shelter, which is probably the most basic effective design, requires gathering massive amounts of material. Archaeological evidence and modern experiments suggest that a proper debris shelter, one that actually keeps you dry and maintains warmth, takes about 4 to 6 hours of work for an experienced person with proper tools. Without tools, or with only crude implements, that time frame, well, it doubles or even triples. You're exhausted, hungry, possibly hypothermic, and trying to build something that might just keep you alive through the night. Food acquisition, honestly, presents the cruelest challenge. Hunting large game with primitive weapons is extraordinarily difficult. Paleolithic peoples used atlatls, those spear throwers that increased projectile velocity, and later, of course, bows. Creating these requires cordage, woodworking ability, and really extensive practice. Stone Age hunters trained their entire lives. You're improvising. Small game trapping offers better odds, but constructing effective traps requires understanding animal behavior, knowing where to place them, and having the right materials to build them. Gathering provides the most reliable calories, but only if you know what's edible. Acorns are nutritious but require extensive processing to remove toxic tannins, crushing, leaching in water for days. Many edible plants are seasonal. Others are edible only in specific forms or growth stages. Your ancestors held encyclopedic knowledge of local ecology. You're guessing, and guessing wrong means sickness or death. The psychological dimension is equally brutal. Modern humans, you see, are accustomed to security, comfort, and entertainment. But Stone Age survival offers none of these. Every waking moment demands focus on immediate survival needs. It's a constant dance between boredom and terror. Injuries happen all the time. Cuts, bruises, burns, muscle strains, without the luxury of antibiotics or proper first aid. The mental toll of constant vigilance, persistent hunger, and the knowledge that a single mistake could be fatal creates a level of psychological stress that most modern people have never experienced. Yet our ancestors did this. They not only survived, but thrived enough to populate the entire planet, develop language, create art, and build communities. They weren't superhuman. They were human, exactly as human as you are. The difference lies in training, knowledge, and the cultural transmission of survival skills from a very young age. Every adult in a Paleolithic band could do what seems impossible to modern survivalists, because they learned it gradually, practicing skills when failure meant discomfort rather than death. Modern survival experts who attempt authentic Stone Age living report that 30 days is extremely challenging, even for experienced practitioners. 60 days pushes the limits of what's sustainable. Long-term survival requires group cooperation, specialized skill development, and accumulated resources that individual short-term challenges simply can't replicate. Humans are, after all, social species. We survived the Stone Age together, not as isolated individuals. If this exploration of our ancestors' daily reality revealed how remarkable human adaptability truly is, and how much we've forgotten, do consider subscribing to Through Time. Share this with someone who needs to understand that the comforts we take for granted represent tens of thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, and that respecting that legacy means understanding what it took to build. The tools were crude, the life brutal, but the people who survived it made you possible.